I'm going to say something that's not going to be controversial, but very few people are able to act upon this. It's quite common knowledge. Most growth is at the other side of fear. And that growth can be many kinds of dimensions. It can be financially, it can be in terms of personal development. I've experienced growth after fear twice in my life. The first one was when I first went to Hong Kong by myself. I've never left the country, so I'm originally from Germany. I've never left the country by myself at all. And then the very first country I went to was a different continent, was a completely different culture. I went to Hong Kong, did an internship over there, and in the end even ended up studying there long term. So that was the first growth. The second growth, where I was also quite fearful, was starting this YouTube channel. So I'm actually not a very extroverted person. I'm rather introverted. I like numbers. I like to be in front of the computer. I like to analyze things. I'm not necessarily somebody that likes presenting a lot. And so starting a YouTube channel was also quite a big of a task. If you want to, you can watch the very first video published on this channel. You can see how nervous I was at the time. Over the years, of course, as I've published more and more videos, as I've done this more and more often, I feel less fearful. But of course, there's always a little bit of nervousness. But most growth, again, comes after the fear. There needs to be some kind of motivation to cross that barrier, to cross this wall of fearfulness. Now, I'm not saying anything new here, right? We all know that there is growth beyond the fear, but we don't really confront that fear. Why do we choose to stay comfortable? Really comfortable, I think, is the wrong word here. Because are we really comfortable staying in that cubicle office? Are we really comfortable talking to colleagues that we don't really enjoy talking to? Are we really comfortable having a fake political persona that's always politically correct, that doesn't want to offend anybody? Are we comfortable to work overtime and to work on weekends and to cancel appointments with friends and family for that middle management job? Probably we are not really comfortable. Still, most people don't change anything about that situation. All of those things are not cool at all, but it seems like they're not bad enough to do something about it. Only if enough pain is felt, something is changing. Only if the boss that we have in that cubicle office, if the boss is bad enough to us, if he treats us bad enough, if he doesn't appreciate our work, only then might we start to change jobs. Only then might we do something. But all of those other annoyances, they seem to not be bad enough for us to improve something, especially to do a step where we might be somewhat fearful to go ahead, to do a change, right? A new job is of course also an additional risk. We don't know if the new job is really better. So really, it seems like most growth is not driven by a big desire that we have. It seems like most growth comes out of pain avoidance. Either the pain that we currently feel or the pain that we perceive might come in the future if we don't change anything. It's really pain that we don't want to have, that has to be large enough, that has to be bigger than our fear, that brings us across this hump, that then we grow out of it. And so that then also explains why many wealthy people, why many millionaires are actually more fearful about money, are more scared to be broke, to become broke, than many regular people. The millionaires simply have been that scared that they started working hard, that they started investing, that they started saving. Their potentially irrational fear was big enough to change something. And everybody else that's not as fearful, that objectively might be in a worse position, they don't have all of that energy to do something about their potentially not so great life. For example, I can talk out of experience. Over the last 3 years, every year on average, I roughly doubled my net worth. So after 3 years, that's roughly an 8x, a bit more than that. Do I really feel 8 times more financially secure than I used to 3 years ago? The answer is no. Of course, I feel a bit better, but definitely not 8 times better. I don't feel 8 times more secure because, of course, there's also lifestyle inflation, etc. And while I could always reduce that lifestyle, still, the feeling we have towards something, especially the feeling we have towards numbers, is not necessarily in alignment with the reality. And so I believe there's really only 2 types of actions. There are the types of actions that are great today and not so great for the future if you do them long term. And there are the types of actions that don't feel that perfect today, but that are great for our future. So let's say, for example, exercising, right? Exercising today might not feel very great, but it's good if you do this for a long time. Saving money, same thing, right? We don't consume today, but it's good for the future because we feel better about ourselves. We've got a better net worth, we feel safer, etc. There are really very few neutral activities long term. Either it's better for our long-term development or it's worse for our long-term development. And so really, what do we need in order to get the proper motivation? We need some kind of irrational fear for pain in the future, probably. If our situation is not already completely depressing, then in order to get motivated to do something, to be improving over time, we just need to have a fear that something might be worse in the future. And so one potentially semi-rational way to go about this is to just look at other people that are already 10 or 20 years ahead. So let's say you're currently in a corporate office, middle management job, or lower entry job, whatever it is, and you look at the people that are 10 years ahead of you or 20 years ahead of you, that are your managers, that make maybe probably more money, but are they really happier? Are they fitter than you? Are they smarter than you? Are they having a better family life than you? Do you really want to be like them in 10 or 20 years? And if the answer is no, then it probably makes sense to do something about it right now, because this is where the trajectory is going. And so really the fundamental question is, who do you want to be like? If there's nobody in the company 10 or 20 years older than you that you want to be like, if there's only people that are completely in different lines of businesses, etc., then maybe you want to rather get into that direction. It doesn't have to be today, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but maybe gradually there is something that has to change. And so you can just bring the potential threat, the potential future pain to the present just by looking at people that are already living that future. Now, just because we are scared to be like our boss in, say, 10 or 20 years, still doesn't necessarily give us enough energy, enough courage to overcome the fear that we might have. And so the way I think about this is that we still have to build ourselves to a degree. We have to build a character to a degree in order to get those jumps done. If you look at video games, for example, right? Role play video games. You're not trying to beat the biggest boss when you just started out, right? You're leveling up. You try to become better at something. You build up the armor, you buy the weapons, whatever it is, right? You get a better character in order to then tackle the harder challenges. And so in real life, it probably doesn't work that differently, right? If we are healthier, if we sleep better, if we've got a better mental state, maybe because also our body is healthier, because we work out, if there's a more balanced version of ourselves that in general has more energy because we're able to overcome the small little challenges of everyday life, then this can spill over to other parts of our life as well, right? If we are rested well, we probably also have more willpower to potentially work more after our regular job. So this is what I personally did, right? I worked out every day. I tried to sleep well every day. I had my main job. And after my main job, I still had a side hustle of programming for a smaller company on the side. So I did my programming management at my main job. I did regular programming for the side hustle, and I saved all of that side hustle money in order to then invest this into the crypto market. This is then how I first started off everything. Most people that I know don't have enough energy to still work after their main job. They're completely exhausted. And this can simply just be a character building thing, right? If you still, most of your evenings, start watching Netflix, and you drink alcohol, and you never work out, and your video game character isn't really up to speed to challenge that big boss, it's very hard to overcome anything. It's very hard to progress in anything. It's very hard to get over the hump of potential fears one might have. Some people even connect this with biology, right? They say, if you sleep enough, and if you work out properly, if you don't drink alcohol, if you socialize a little bit with the people that you like, etc., then of course your hormones will also be in better balance. You will have raised testosterone, and some people say that higher testosterone also makes feel effort better. So the more testosterone we have, the more we start winning, the more we also want to fight, and the more we want to achieve, the more we want to grow. So there's connections everywhere. And even if we don't have a direct answer yet how to tackle this big challenge, we can start tackling the small little things, we can start tackling our routines, and that will already be a first step towards then tackling the big thing. And so it can start with simple things like removing all of the bad content that you currently might be exposed to. Right? If you're doom scrolling on Instagram just for entertainment, or if you're following the news that don't have any direct connection with whatever you're doing, you're binge watching videos about current wars that might or might not break out, etc., that has no real connection to your personal life, then that's probably going to just disturb your thinking in really focusing on where you want to go and focusing on what kind of skills you want to develop. And so if we start with the simple things first, we get steps ahead. So for example, here for this YouTube channel, right? How did I start making my first video? I actually first recorded myself a few times before publishing. So I made a few videos that I've never published just to get a little bit of practice, to not say that many ums and ahs, etc. In the end, it was still a pretty bad video, but at least I published it after a while, right? I still did something. And so very often there are some little micro challenges that we can start with before doing the big thing. So before, let's say, switching our job, right? If we don't like our current job, instead of just trying to go completely on a new journey, we can just start incorporating a side hustle. And then maybe afterwards change the main job, because the side hustle also gives us additional security. We've got an additional source of income that we can save. And then if we don't like our main job, even if we are unemployed for a few months, it doesn't really matter that much. We've now saved some money. We also get a bit more confidence because now we know that we can be valuable, not just to our current employer, but also to other people. So in the end, it becomes a bit more tangible that whatever we are currently doing is not necessarily restricted to the environment where we're currently in. The best is, of course, if we can stay with this. So I have something like a diary. So let's say we write down every day, what have we improved in order to make our life better in the future? Where did we learn something that we didn't know before? Where have we done something that we didn't do before? If we can just improve our life by say 1% per week, we almost double it after a year, right? Because things compound. So let's say we start sleeping earlier and getting up earlier. Or let's say we start reading 1 or 2 pages of a book that might bring us forward every evening. Or let's say we finish our last meal of the day 3 or 4 hours before sleeping, so that we sleep a bit better. Or let's say there's a skill we want to learn and we watched 1 or 2 tutorials about that skill on a day. Whatever it is, right? If there's some kind of progress, if it's consistent enough, and if it's done for a prolonged period of time, it will lead to something eventually. There is volatility along the way, there are ups and downs, but if there's constant input, right? If we save into a 401k every month, then of course, after 5, 10 or 15 years, there will be some money in it. There will be some progress. That's true for the financial life. That's also true for personal progress. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to give this a like. Feel free to also check out the other mindset and strategy videos. There is a playlist on this channel, so just click on the channel link and go to playlist and you can watch all of those videos one by one. Thanks again for being part here of YouTube. Feel free to also check out Premium. If you're interested in that, a link to Premium pops up here on the screen. Cheers!